Okay, welcome everybody. Happy Thanksgiving week. We hope you all have a wonderful time for Thanksgiving. And Reverend Oliver has a meeting with a minister, and so he's not able to host today. So I hope you don't mind that I'm here introducing today's program. It's our weekly edition of Stopping the Violence and Crime in America. And today we have a wonderful, wonderful guest. He's from Kansas City, Missouri, and this is a replay. It's the edition where Bishop Frank Douglas Jr. Was talking with us because he established a three-pronged nonprofit organization after his son was shot and killed at the age of 23, leaving behind a daughter. The organization includes the Heart of the Father Initiative, Project Relentless, and the innovative Seed Group, which aims to mend the bonds between fathers and their children, assist families of homicide victims through the court and grieving process, and build community by providing organizational and strategic consulting, plus life skills coaching to individuals and couples. The initiative seeks to address violent crime among Black youth by addressing problems that contribute to it and promoting the effective healing in the Black community through strengthening families. Without further ado, we will hear from Bishop.
To every brother and sister that I don't know, but hopefully in the days that come, you'll understand. Do not, I'm not a ride and die. I'm a ride and live. And I'm not and I love you to life. Whoever I have not met yet, I look forward to meeting you. Thank you for your hospitality in such a entry point. And I must just give kudos to Reverend Juan Acosta because it is his persistence. I told him he is like the parable of the neighbor knocking at midnight, and he's been striving to make this connection for the better part of the first of the year. I am again humbled, and I will share my story and parts of my story to the best of my ability. I want to give this caveat. My nonprofit is called Heart of the Father Initiative. And although my son was murdered 4 years ago, and that was the catalyst of it really taking shape, it had actually been 18 plus years prior to that. I had some tapes of Marvin Winans, and he had about 6 cassette tapes called The Heart of the Father. And out of it, for those of us that are followers of Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, he made the parallel that Jesus come to earth to show us how to have subordination to the Father and celebrate it. And so out of that, that was so intriguing to me. And in the world we live in, there is such a need for fathers. And I had an awesome father, and so I understand today a whole lot that I didn't understand 10 or 15 years ago. That said, so this had been in my spirit. And 48 hours before my son was murdered, I was actually over to his apartment where he and his girlfriend lived, and his new 4-week-old daughter. And my custom is the grands do not come over to my house for me to sit until they are out of diapers. So I remember that day going over and talking with him. We talked for about 2.5 hours. That was the last time I was to see him. And we talked about 2.5 hours, and this came up in our conversation, the genesis of what I wanted to do in 2019. Well, I was actually planning for one of our national conferences on the telephone around 2:30, and somewhere between 2:30 on Martin Luther King birthday, January 21, 2019, I got a call, and it was his girlfriend, but she was hysterically screaming in the phone, and I could not make any rhyme or reason. And then I got another call about 5 minutes later from my son Cameron's mother, and she says something has happened to Cameron. And so my wife and I, we were about 10 minutes from away where his apartment was, and then I thought it to call back, and Cameron was no more on the earth. And so we were maybe about 80 feet, 100 feet away from Cameron, and he was under the yellow canopy as the investigators were doing work. And it was then, and for the next 2.5 hours, as we were in, I say it had to be the temperature somewhere between 25 and 30. And we were just waiting. And out there waiting, I learned something about his mom. And so my wife and I got there, and his mom, she was there, and what we call growing up a day robe. She really wasn't really suited and booted for the weather. And she said something very startling to me. She said, "Frank, we were not here when our son took his last breath on the earth. We're not going anywhere until he's up off that ground." And it said something to me about a mother's love that's slightly different than a father's love. And I was trying to look at, get her protected out of the elements. But I understand and understood where she was coming from. For brothers and sisters, what I have learned in this journey, that the difference between a father and a mother is a mother has 9 months before the world has 9 months of being with the child. The child is within her, and the child develops under that heart of that mother. That being said, my son was killed as a result of him actually literally being in his mother's car and coming down a street, a narrow street in an apartment complex where there was poor security, and the perpetrator pulled his door out on a narrow, and that's what really started this terrible and fatal tragedy. That he opened the door, and it was a deliberate action, and it caused my son to go to the car, and they had words, and it's been aired on KCPT here locally, so it's out there on the internet. I feel like people ought to see what anger and hatred can do. And then for about less than 15 seconds, he claimed he felt my son was threatening. And he must have said something. My son turned around and he began to shoot at my son. 6 bullets from his Glock landed, and the fatal shot was to the back of my son's head. He was probably 30 feet from my son. And so it suggests to me he shot a handgun before. Nonetheless, we went through much in that time, even though I work even today still with Ad Hoc Group Against Crime here locally, which deals with violence in the city, not just murders, but it deals with just violence as it relates to the urban community here in Kansas City. And I teach in the jails as well as in treatment centers, a program called Thinking for a Change. And so I was really conflicted. This was another chocolate man that had shot another chocolate man. And so there was confliction, but there is also what I've learned in the process is the need for justice. Even as a Christian, I owe it, and I owed it to his daughter. And this was the rationale in which I moved in the 2.5 years. Mind you, this happened about a year before COVID. But this was what I asked God at his scene: do not let my son's murder get less justice than Michael Vick did for his improper behavior with dogs, because I didn't want my son's life to be worth less than a dog. So that was an impetus that drove me through this process. Through the process of that 2.5 years, I have a better understanding of how the court system works. The court system is very collegial to defense attorneys, and it's just the nature of the way here within at least Missouri, the laws are. And I learned that a family has really no rights because it's the state's case. And so that was a very shocking reality about a month later after his murder, when we went to pretrial. It took us, because of COVID, almost 1,000 days to bring his case to trial. That's extremely difficult on a family. So in the process of me forming Heart of the Father, there was a need I already felt because of work I do in the community, where there's gaps in silos in the community of how one agency works or coordinates with another. So I'm so intrigued, Reverend Oliver, because of some of the things you said prior to us going live, to just find out more about this organization. And it sounds so beautiful, the research I've done on this organization. Nonetheless, that's what I felt like, that there's agencies that are not talking to agencies, and the strength of real, true advocacy is missing for the family. And so surviving families go through so much, and I've learned a lot about trauma. I learned that I really have had a traumatic life, but growing up in the urban core, it has been normed. And that's unfortunate that for many people that trauma has been normed. And then there are different other echelons that not just deal with racism, but classism along the way. And so I had already had the Heart of the Father as something in me, just, knowing that I'd already talked 48 hours earlier to my son. Now, out of that, what was birthed was what I called at that time Project Relentless, because I know that for that 2.5 year period, when a family is trying to go from not just healing, but trauma justice, there are a lot of gaps and holes in current processes, so that a family really is always in a reactionary mode. And so it started out, again, as Project Relentless, but as I'm healing now, brothers and sisters, I needed to change and rebrand that, because what I found is that there are 4 basic ways that many of us respond to trauma. Some of us fight, Then there's the term flight. Then there's the term where we operate in fear, so we just go undercover. And then there's fawn, F-A-N-N. That means we just become a doormat. And so where I found myself was in flight. And so I want you to understand, flight is not exactly what I thought flight was, but flight was if you feel like you're tempted to fight, but you know that is not going to produce the right result because of, at least for me, the Christian Judeo principles, which I live by. Mind you, I tell people this, and some people believe me and some didn't. I've never held a handgun. I didn't say that I've never been around one. I said I've never held a handgun. I don't own a handgun. It was not conducive in my upbringing. It does not mean I don't understand why some people are gun holders. And so, but I never held a handgun. It was not promoted when I was married to Cameron's mother. We in the household, we did not let our children play with even toy guns. Even at Cameron, one of his last part-time jobs, he was working at what we call a convenience store where, you know, liquor and things are sold and you get gas. And he had to quit the job because he was uncomfortable having to have a handgun working late at night. That was just one of the requirements of him working late at night. So that was etched in my children's psyche as well as mine from my father for whatever reason. And so I am not anti-gun, but I believe my son would probably still be here if there was gun education, gun training. The lethality of guns from start to finish, whether you're talking about a handgun, in a handgun, the bullets travel about at 850 feet per second. But the lethality there is slightly different than in a military grade gun, which is generally a rifle, that is, which moves about 2,500 feet per second. And then the lethality of the size of that bullet or cartridge makes a lot of difference on skin wound or skin injury and tearing up tissue of a person's body. I believe we're in a reckless moment in our culture because of how we promote guns from every aspect of the television and media, games. I believe all of them play a contributing factor to the level of violence because many children go and recreate and play paint guns or rifles. And so they get the sense of a power, and they get a sense of a power without responsibility. I believe that when I transitioned, you all, and consequently my son's murderer received 6 years, wouldn't have gotten 6 years had it not been for our vigilance as a family. I understand also, brothers and sisters, restorative justice, but there is a word that has been around for a long time, and it has a lot of misunderstanding, especially in the American culture right now, called reparations. Reparations is a term that comes really out of the 1850s, the early 1800s, when, say, a farmer in an agricultural society, maybe two farmers, a bull tore up the fence, or even maybe an accidental injury that caused trauma or even caused death. Instead of a judicial system getting in the middle of it, those two families would come together and speak of, in the name of peace, how do we bring repair? So really reparation means about how to bring repair, as the Hebrew word for peace is to make a new covenant, which is shalom, which is to bring back a reparation to a place where nothing's missing, nothing lacking, and nothing broken. And so it's the broken piece that families really deal with. During the time that we were trying to go to trial, and when we were told how difficult it was going to be for us to get the modicum of justice that we were seeking, it broke Terry Cameron's mother's heart. And I do believe 60 days later, she did not necessarily just succumb to COVID, but 60 days earlier, when we were dealing with pretrial discussion with the judicial system, and they flattened our expectation, I believe it tore her heart apart, and maybe even her will. And so during that time, you're always a fighter. And I want you to understand that gun violence can affect you in so many ways that it can even challenge your character. And I remember being at a place in August of 2020, which is about a year and a half after Cameron's murder. And you contemplate seeing that person, and even maybe what type of retribution you would have toward that person. And I had a relative, and he literally told me at an outing, at an outdoor outing, cousin, I can take care of them for you. And it was the first time I had a reality of maybe how the other person is thinking, that is dealing with the cusp of hatred, going from just evil and wickedness to going over that line. And I was floored for him even making that. He said, now, I'm gonna go to jail, maybe go to prison for life, but you're hurting so badly. I just wanted you to know how much I love you. And I had at least, his mother, Terry, and myself had at least 8 people that come into us in various ways to make that same offer. And for me, it would make me no better than the person that murdered my son. And so it was never an option, but it's just to share with you the tremendous pressures that come for a surviving family that is dealing with this kind of loss. So I'm making it my life's business to, we've converted it from Project Relentless to Equipping for Justice. And I believe that's coming out of me not being pensive and not having the same anger, and have had a time of some level of healing. And so what I realized that when a child is taken from a parent, I don't care if the child is a young adult or an adult, it changes the life of the parents, especially because the natural order is that we go first. It allows that parent also to do a lot of reflection, maybe even have guilt about that process. And for me, for several months, I was uncertain if I was on the scene, what could I have done? But what I do know is God is merciful, that in this particular instance, my son's trauma allowed him to be quickly relieved from pain. So he did not suffer from that head injury, aside from his light was snuffed out. So I made the other commitment during the process of that week as we were preparing to funeralize Cameron, that one day, brothers and sisters, I know his daughter, Milani, is going to ask her poppy this one question: did you do everything within your power to get justice for my father's death? I didn't say vengeance, I said justice. I didn't say retribution, I said justice. And I believe I can live, and I asked God at that moment also that would he give me, extend to me some at least 25 more years so I can be able to answer that adult granddaughter one day. Now, Heart of the Father has 4 aspects to it. Dealing with fathers, I believe that we have so many mentors that we have surrogated into the role that the fathers should have, where we need to equip the father. And so I'm about making the father become dedicated to the role. And I have fathers that say to me, brothers and sisters, I can't get along with their mother. I said, you did for 15 minutes. So now let's do your best act to understand that you want to make your number one fans your children. And to do that, if the mother has the custodial guardianship, then she's going to have to become your number one customer. And so when you make her your number one customer, you will reestablish what these 3 R's are, which is relationships require respect. And then secondly is the equipping for justice, in which I believe we're here today. And I believe that every family should get justice. Now, justice may look a little different to every family. I don't believe necessarily the boy that killed my son was 21. My son was 23. And so my son loses a lot. He loses a lot. I don't necessarily believe in retribution where this boy has to suffer, but I do believe that justice should and has occurred. They were going to take his 3 years, give him 3 years and 3 years and run them concurrently. But then we showed some video that he had placed out on social media that he was actually mocking the judicial system. He was actually admitting to what he had done. And because of that, we were able to get them to not run concurrent, but at least 6 years. Now, that's far lower than what we anticipated. But nonetheless, in Kansas City, there are men and women walking around that had perpetrators and murderers that not got 1 day behind bars for that heinous crime. Now, I know some don't see necessarily, forgive. I've forgiven him. I have forgiven him, brothers and sisters. However, justice is an aspect of God's grace as well. Here is Jesus, and this is where I'll stop. And if whatever questions may be offered, Reverend Oliver, here's Jesus between 2 thieves. And Jesus offers grace, and he says, this day you'll be with me in paradise. But what Jesus did not do is alter the consequence that brought the 3 of them together. And justice was served, but grace was given also. So I believe there is 2 truths where justice can be enacted and grace can be enacted. And I believe when we talk about peace today, I believe that's why everyone all over the world is together right in this moment. When we talk about peace, we have to lean on the Apostle Paul, who said, sin does abound, evil or wickedness does abound. And sometimes it seems like there's more wickedness than grace. That's only because we're looking through the lens of hopelessness. But when we look through the lens of hope, then we're able to say, just like the Apostle Paul, wherever sin abounds, grace abounds much more. Brothers and sisters, grace still does abound much more. It is commendable. Everything that everyone is striving to do that's on this webinar, God bless you. Thank you for allowing me to share some of my story. I am also a practicing person that takes trauma therapy. Therapuso is the Greek word out of the Bible that stands for layers of healing. If any of you all are dealing with traumatic situations similar to mine that have come as a result of gun violence, do not try to go it alone. God has put beautiful men and women on the planet to help us to get the layered healing that we deserve. Remember, gun violence consequences are abnormal situations, and your body was not designed to hold in the pain or grief that you may be experiencing. God bless you, and thank you, Reverend Oliver, and everyone else.
Okay, I'd like to ask for your reflections. There was so much information given here. I'd like to ask for your reflections on what Bishop Douglas just told us. There's so much there. Who would like to go first? While you're deciding, gathering your thoughts, I just wanted to, there are a couple notes that I took. The first one was, it was 1,000 days. That family went through a little bit less than 3 years that they, not only did they lose a child, I mean, losing a parent is really hard, but losing a child, if we think about it. And then even after that, having to navigate through that trauma, that they needed to go through 1,000 days for the trial. And actually, the mom did not make it through it, possibly because of what she experienced. Reverend Geller?
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. I just first thing I'd like to say is I admire the courage of our brother who gave this testimony about his son's murder. His smile really is a testimony to his desire to really, I think, want to work in this field and want to put an end to violence in this country. And I feel so much more empowered to make a contribution to this by listening to your testimony. I'm so sorry for what you went through. And nobody should have to go through that, honestly speaking. And it's just, we live in a very troubled times in this country now, and we really need to do something about it. And I think this upcoming meeting that we're having in Las Vegas will be a step towards that, because we're bringing together people who, as Reverend Oliver said, work in their silos. And now we are coming together as one to hear each other's stories and see what more we can do. But I know that all of this group of leaders who have appeared on Stop the Violence have something really good to say, just like you do. And my prayers and my thoughts are with you at this time. And yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss, and pray that you can use that loss for good. I know you are already. So thank you so much for that, and God be with you.
We'll definitely pass that on to him. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, the courage that
Is he
he
no longer
had.
on the call?
This was actually a replay. It's
Oh,
difficult.
sorry.
It's difficult to get, well, we'll
Got it.
send this to him and let him know.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's difficult to get a live speaker when everybody's on their way to Thanksgiving with their
Understood.
family.
Understood.
Sorry, so Reverend Oliver decided to have us replay this, but
Okay.
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, what he did, how the way that he digested this, I mean, he's still fighting this fight. He's still in the middle of it, and he's willing to go through this and to help others that are experiencing similar things. And thank God for that. Thank God that he is willing to do that, because it takes an incredibly anointed person. I think he felt a call from heaven
For sure.
to continue with this. Otherwise, how could you
Please
do it?
excuse me for a moment, Nadia. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
Go ahead.
No. Gosh. Yeah, I don't want to have a monologue here. I want everybody, I don't know if anybody's experienced similar things or if they know people that have experienced similar things. But I think that, it was 2019, so now it's been, 5 years, and he's learned a lot, with the court system, with relationships, many, many things. So he talked about trauma being the norm. And I know there are communities where this is true. And that's why what Reverend Geller brought up with the silos, everybody's coming out of the silos and using all their best practices to do something nationally. So when people feel like they're alone, they get less accomplished. Uh, Andrea, is there something you'd like to add? It would be wonderful to hear from you.
Sorry, I'm not in a position where I can keep my mic open, but thanks
Okay.
for asking.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Or just chime in whenever you are in a position if you have, so in between everything. Bill
Will
Stone,
do. I'll use the chat.
excellent, excellent. Okay, thank you. Bill Stoner, I know you always have something really amazing to add. If you'd like to step up.
Sorry, I came in the presentation a little bit late, but from what I
Mhm.
gathered, he was able to forgive the person who took his son's life.
Right.
And to forgive and to not seek revenge or some kind of retribution calls upon a higher standard of living, a higher standard of relationship with ourselves, relationship with God. And as you say, yes, he probably did receive much assistance from heaven, and we're all benefiting from that. So to a great extent, I hope we can apply that any and everywhere possible, not only in situations where a loved one's life was taken, but to realize that we have to start setting a standard in our culture and in our relationships where we allow a higher power, such as God, working through us. And so I can really see how he is can be and should be a great source of hope for our whole country, our whole culture, and more than just for inner city violence, but how to transform our nation to where we can really begin to see God in each other and really praise the presence of goodness and love in each other. So I'm grateful for his testimony, and I just pray that we can all be stronger as a result of this. And I pray that Reverend Oliver's conference coming up next month can stimulate people of many different parts he can either hear about it or come to see it directly. I hope that Reverend Oliver can touch many people through that conference. Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry about that. We have Sir Larry Moffat with us. Thank you, thank you.
Oh, good.
Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, we just had an amazing testimony from a Kansas City, Missouri minister. And
Oh, yes, yes. I remember from the flyer.
it's amazing what he talked about. After his son was shot, they had 1,000 days in court in order for that all to be resolved. So not only did he lose his son, but he also had to go through the whole trial situation. And they actually kind of pushed back, definitely, because the court was going to grant this person just 3 years for one thing and 3 years for another, and the sentences were going to run concurrently. But because of what they found online, what this gentleman did with what he did online, they were able to get 6 years. So at least they got they were surprised it was so little for taking a life, but at least they got that. So it's really interesting, and all of these programs are online, so you can go back and you can watch this because there was
Yeah.
so much that he gave us.
Yep.
So I know John Healy is here. John, do you have any particular reflection that you have about what we learned from Bishop Douglas? You'd have to unmute yourself. Yeah,
Yeah, can you hear me?
you bet.
Yes.
I was impressed by his whole attitude about the whole incident, that he must have a really strong relationship with God, and to be able to overcome this kind of a situation. And he's a supreme example, I think, of how, everybody should try to deal with this kind of trauma in their lives. But of course, the ultimate goal is to prevent the trauma in the first place, I guess, is what we're looking at here. And I have high hopes that we will be able to, with everyone's help, with everyone, as knowledge is spread through the internet quickly, much more quickly than it was in the past, and we're already seeing that kind of results in many different areas of life. So I have a lot of hope for the future. And that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Arlene?
I just I wish that we would have him on again so that we could talk to him. I feel like finding out it was a recording I wish we would have known beforehand that it was a video. I think it would have been received with a different mindset. And I feel I'd really like to be able to discuss with him, have him here for this this little talk afterwards to really somehow have some give and take with him about how, you know, he talks about things. But I'd like to somehow understand. I mean, I feel like I don't know if he's, anyways, I just have to ask him. I don't feel like he's at all over over it. I feel like it's still very fresh for him. And I hope that through doing these kinds of things, it can help to can give him some strength and meaning to overcome what's happened.
Absolutely. And you know, his original time that he was with us is on recording too. So you can go back and watch that if you'd like.
I'm not interested in watching anything. I'm interested in having give and take with him.
Right. Yeah, I'll suggest it definitely to Reverend Oliver that he asks him to come again. And I know Reverend Juan Acosta he's the one who introduced him to this. He's overseas right now. He and his wife are in Malaysia for the holiday, but they'll be back and I can talk with Reverend Juan Acosta, who is from Kansas City, who's his friend. So I'm sorry about the recording. It is the holiday, so
I just wish it was, yeah. But anyways, I'm glad I heard it. But I'd really like to be able to talk with him about it to really understand. I mean, I just know that the death of a child is not something you get over, but hopefully he can give it meaning through the work that he's doing and allow him to feel that something good came of this horrible, horrible situation.
absolutely. So as we close,
Nadia,
yes.
what she can do is she can put the question here and then we can email it to him.
That's not give and take either. He'll say exactly what he said on the recording. Anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, we do this every week, so it's
nice. I'm glad I heard it, and that I'm just saying I'm just really, when he was speaking, because I didn't know it was recording, I was really looking forward to being able to talk with him, you know, and it's not bad, but I'm just saying that there are things that when you talk to somebody, it's different than asking a question.
You bet.
So you'd get the same answers as to what he just said. You know, talking to someone's different, being able to actually have give and take with them.
Yep. Well, I'll definitely make sure that you get the announcement when he's on again.
Thank you.
Yep. I just want to let you know that tonight is, well, in 1 hour, there's WCLC, a wonderful program that you can look up, connect to. And then tonight we have Ambassadors for Peace, right?
That's right.
Okay. And then we also have middle of December is going to be the conference at IPEC with best practices. And so I just want to let you know about future programs today and in the future. And thank you very much for spending your time with us. Really, really appreciate it.
Who's putting on the best practices program at IPEC?
Reverend Oliver.
Thank you.
Can you share about this, Nadia?
Go ahead. I haven't been working with.
No, you go ahead. This is the donate page.
Oh, okay.
I see.
If you guys want to support the upcoming national conference in IPEC, go to upfusadonate.org and you can donate to that conference to help the national. They're gonna create some kind of a guidebook or something like that. It will be shared to everyone. All of the speakers in the past 2 years will be coming together at this time. So we're hoping to have a very good output out of this conference. We can be able to use it in our own local areas.
Can you give the web page address again, please?
It's upfusadonate.org. upfusadonate.org.
Is there a dot between UPF and USA or no?
No, upfusadonate.org. It's one word.
Okay.
We appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just click the button that says donate today, and it brings you to the information.
Thanks, EJ. Anybody else have anything, any last words before we sign off and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving?
Nadia, your background is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
So beautiful.
I live in native territory up here.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, I am.
Thank you, Nadia. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you,
Well,
Thank you,
everybody.
EJ.
Welcome. Safe and
Take
happy
care. God
travels.
bless everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody have a
Happy
good,
Thanksgiving.
good
Thank you.
holiday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Lots of family.
Thank
Okay.
you. Adios, vaya con Dios.
All right,
Blessings.
happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Ciao, Bella.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll see
Bye.
you all soon, I'm sure.